Imagine a world where people believed in many different gods. Then, suddenly, a new idea began to rise like the sun. This idea was powerful and bright, and it was the beginning of a new era. But what is this new era? It's the start of Islam, a major religion that began over 400 years ago and changed the world forever. At the heart of this new beginning was a man named Muhammad. He lived in a busy city called Mecca. One night, something amazing happened. Muhammad received a message from an angel named Gabriel. This message was special because it came from one God, Allah. Before Muhammad, many believed in many gods, but this message was different. It was clear and strong. There is only one God. This was the start of Islam. This idea was super important. Why? Because it brought people together with one set of beliefs and practices. It taught them how to live better lives, treating each other with kindness and fairness. Think about it like this. Imagine a group of people playing a game but with no rules. It would be confusing, right? Muhammad's message brought the rules that helped guide people. Let's look at some examples. The 5 daily prayers in Islam remind Muslims to stay connected with God, just like how we write reminders to remember something important. Another example is charity. Muslims are encouraged to help those in need. It's like when you share your lunch with a friend who forgot theirs. These practices began with Muhammad's message and continue even today. Some people think this new era was amazing and supported it wholeheartedly. They believed it brought peace and unity. But not everyone agreed. Some people in Mecca didn't like these new ideas at first. They were used to the old ways and didn't want change. It was a big challenge for Muhammad and his followers. When change happens, it's not always easy. This beginning of a new era didn't just stop there, it influenced so many other things. It played a big role in art, science, and even how people governed their communities. Just like a tiny seed grows into a huge tree, Muhammad's message spread far and wide, rooting itself into the hearts of millions. So, as we journey through the origins of Islam, remember, it all started with a bright new idea that changed everything. And there's so much more to this story. Imagine a time long ago in a hot sandy place called the Arabian Peninsula. This is where our exciting story of Islam begins. Islam started over 400 years ago with a man named Muhammad, who lived in the city of Mecca. What makes Muhammad special, you ask? Well, he had some amazing experiences that would change everything. Muhammad is important because he received messages from Allah, which is the Arabic word for God. These messages came from an angel named Gabriel. Just think, an angel coming down with messages. These messages were about how to live a good life and be kind to one another. They were later written down in a book called the Quran, which is like a guide for Muslims, the people who follow Islam. You might wonder, why is this such a big deal? These teachings helped make the world a better place by encouraging fairness and charity. For example, Muslims are guided by the 5 pillars of Islam. One pillar is giving to the poor so everyone can have what they need. Another is fasting during a special time called Ramadan to understand how it feels to be hungry, which helps them feel compassion for those who have less. But did everyone agree with Muhammad? Not at first. Some people didn't like his ideas because they were different from what they were used to. They even made it hard for Muhammad and his followers in Mecca. This was a challenge for the new religion because it meant not everyone was ready for change. However, later, more and more people began to see the good in Muhammad's messages. This beginning of Islam connects to so many other things in the world. For instance, the spread of Islam led to the growth of beautiful cities and amazing studies in science and art during what's known as the Golden Age of Islam. This has influenced cultures and societies around the world, showing how important these beginnings really were. So you see, the start of Islam is not just a story from a dusty book. It is a tale of adventure, challenge, and change that has shaped the world in ways that still matter today. Let's see where this incredible journey will take us next. Imagine a time long, long ago in a vast desert land full of mysteries and camels. Here lived a man named Muhammad. He wasn't just any man. He would become one of the most important figures in history. So, who was Muhammad? Muhammad was born in Mecca, a busy city full of traders and travelers around the year 570. He started as an ordinary person, but he would go on to do extraordinary things. Ever wonder how one person can change the world? Keep listening, because Muhammad did just that. Muhammad is important because he became the prophet of Islam. But what does that mean? A prophet is someone chosen by God to deliver special messages to people. Muhammad was chosen to bring the teachings of Islam, which are followed by millions around the globe today. He spoke God's words through a book called the Quran. Sound interesting? It is, because these teachings changed how many people lived their lives, guiding them in how to be kind and fair. Let's dive into some real-world sites you might recognize today. One example is the Kaaba in Mecca. Once a place filled with idols, Muhammad transformed it into Islam's most sacred site. Now Muslims around the world face the Kaaba when they pray. Another example is Medina, the city that Muhammad moved to and helped create a community based on peace and justice. Imagine building a whole city on the idea of being fair to one another. Some people say Muhammad was a wise and compassionate leader who cared deeply for others. Stories tell of his kindness to the poor and his fair treatment of everyone, including women and children. But not everyone agreed with him. There were those who felt his new ideas were a threat to old ways and resisted his teachings. This led to disagreements and battles. But Muhammad stood firm in his beliefs. So how does all this connect to the origins of Islam? Well, each part of Muhammad's life, from his teachings to his actions, helped shape the religion of Islam. When you think about it, his journey is like the first chapter in a very big book about the start of something timeless. As you learn more about Islam, remember these beginnings with Muhammad and how one man in a desert city shaped a path that many follow today. Excited to uncover more? There's a whole world of history to explore. Let's dive into a fascinating part of our story about the origins of Islam. Mecca, a city that is the heart of this tale. Imagine a bustling city in the middle of the desert, full of life and traders from all over. Mecca wasn't just any city. It was a special place where people came to trade goods like spices and silk. But there was something even more special about Mecca that made it incredibly important. At the center of Mecca was the Kaaba, a large cube-shaped building that people believed was very holy. This is where people came to worship in peace. But why was this so important for the story of Islam? Well, the Kaaba and Mecca became key to understanding how Islam grew and spread. You see, when the Prophet Muhammad began sharing his messages from God, Mecca was the place where these messages started to take hold. Now, let's tease you with a question. What would happen if a city that cherished its old traditions had to decide whether to accept new ideas? Keep that in mind as we continue. Think about this. One of the big controversies around Mecca was that some people didn't want to change their old ways. They liked how things were and didn't want to hear new ideas. This created a lot of tension, and not everyone agreed. Some powerful leaders in Mecca were against Prophet Muhammad's message. They worried it might change the way they lived and make them lose power. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that Muslims all over the world, even today, face Mecca when they pray? This shows just how connected Mecca is to Islam and why it's such a big deal. But it also shows a challenge, how one city had to become a center for a new religion without losing its own identity. Okay, ready for another teaser? What if I told you that this conflict in Mecca was just the beginning of something much larger? It led to a journey called the Hijra, which changed everything. This is where we'll head next. So Mecca's role was huge in Islam's origins because it was the starting point for a new way of thinking. But it wasn't always easy. People had to decide whether to hold on to their past or embrace something new. And that's what makes the story of Mecca so exciting. Stay tuned to find out where this journey leads us next.